Hooty hoo, all my stock market gamblers. Welcome today. I'm Tall Mike. I'm so glad you're here. What do we got going on in the markets? Well, the markets are closed. 4th of July. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Get out there and blow something up. It's a fun holiday, right? All right, so the markets are closed. Now, they were this week. Kind of the calm before the storm is what I'd call it. I think next week we're going to get a lot more activity, a lot more action. I actually think we might start the pullback next week. We'll see. Now they're going to push this market up higher. We're at record highs. We talked about that, how we would get here, but nothing goes straight up forever. I think we'll get a pullback before they push it even farther up. Wild times we live in. You print the money. It's got to go somewhere. It goes into the stock market. New record highs. Look at the stock market. Look at how well our country is doing. I mean, we've never been better off. 2 thumbs up, right? All right, well, let's talk about reality here for a second. I see the bond market, right? The bond market is starting to crack. Now, we noticed this last year. Last year, they lowered the rates, right? They lowered the rates by a full percentage point on the short end, and the long end went up by a full percentage point. Could that be why Jerome doesn't want to lower rates? Now, Donald's begging him to lower rates, want him to lower rates 2 full basis points. He says he won't do it. Why? Because he knows when he lowers those, he's going to skyrocket the long end. You see, the bond market is a problem right now. And the Federal Reserve's not as dumb as they look, right? I mean, they actually see that the bond market is a problem. So they have to find a way to manipulate the bond market so it doesn't go crashing on them. Now, they lowered their balance sheet from 9 trillion down to 7 trillion, but they haven't sold any of the long bonds. No, there's no one to sell them to. We talked about that in the last video. No one to sell the bonds to. So what have they done? Well, they go out and they tell the banks, you're no longer required to hold capital reserves. You can go out and buy as many treasuries as you want. Just treasuries now. They're okaying them to buy as many treasuries as they want with no capital reserve. This manipulates the treasury market, keeps it from crashing. But what else is manipulating the treasury market? Well, they passed the Genius Act, right? Now, the Genius Act, it really should be called the Stupid Act, because that's what it is, a bunch of stupidity going on. They think that if you get into the stable coins, that it's going to save the bond market, because they're making mandatory that all stable coins have to be backed by U.S. Treasuries. What they're doing is they're removing the competition. For example, if you have a stable coin and you backed it with gold, that would be illegal, right? It has to be backed by the U.S. currency, U.S. Treasury, right? The stable coins got to be backed by the U.S. Treasury. Now, they're also banning any interest being paid on the stable coin, right? So you got to back it with the U.S. Treasury, but you're forbidden to pay interest to the person owning the stable coin. So all stable coins that are backed by gold are banned. All stable coins that are, interest bearing, those are banned. And there's strict restrictions on these, right? I mean, they're anti-money laundering, what they call it. If they think you're laundering money, they can flip a switch and steal your stable coins, right? So what we really have is programmable digital money. We have a form of the central bank digital currency. What we want to abandon that, because that takes away all freedom. You see, I want our money to be, I want to be honest money, like real money, gold and silver, but I also want to be anonymous money. I don't want anybody to know how much money I have. I want to be honest and I want to be anonymous. Now, they want the exact opposite of that, right? They want to create these stable coins, and they won't allow big tech firms to create their own stable coin. I don't know why that is. They can create a meme coin, but they're not allowed to create stable coins. You see, we got restrictions on the competition, but their currency, their stable coin, it's not honest and it's not anonymous. They know exactly who owns it, and if they don't like what you do, they can put limits on where you can spend it. They can turn it on and off. It's a digital programmable money. Is this what you want? Look at My take is that they use Bitcoin as the Trojan horse, right? They get the people get into the digital currencies, into the Bitcoin. That's why they're allowed. They're not allowed by the Constitution. You can't go out and start your own money. I can't, I can go out and start a my coin, just like Donald, right? The Donald started the Trump coin. You can now create your own money. For some reason, that's legal. Why is that legal? Well, because that is the family business of the president. So he says it's legal to do now, right? So everybody can go out and create their own coin, have their own currency, have your own form of money. Now, the Constitution, they're against that, right? The only thing that's allowed to be money is gold and silver. That's it. That's the only thing that is allowed to be money. Now, we thrown the Constitution away and we say we can have any type of money we want now. So they're going to go with the stable coins backed by the U.S. bond market. It's going to save the bond market. See, they see the cracks in the bond market, so we're going to go with that, right? That's the plan for the stable coin, the Genius Act, if you will. Now, I want you to be careful with all types of coins, right? I mean, this crypto markets, I mean, I used to say I Googled it, but now you got to say I chat GPT'd it, I AI'd it to see, what the big fraudulent losses were in the crypto markets. Well, you got to go back to 2014 where there was Mt. Gox, right? Okay, now they lost 850,000 Bitcoin. They lost it. They got embezzled and they had security lapses in their system. 850,000 Bitcoin disappeared. That's shocking, right? By today's standard, that's a loss of $50 billion. But they're not the only ones. No. You got BitConnect, right? BitConnect, well, that was 2018. That was a Ponzi scheme, $1 billion Ponzi scheme where everybody got wiped out. You got the OneCoin situation, which happened in 2019, $4.4 billion. It was basically a pyramid scheme, right? Now, what's funny about that is the founder of the pyramid scheme, he's on the most wanted list of the FBI. He's still out there running around. He got away with $4 billion. He's a genius, right? Now, of course, we all know about FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, right? Oh, the billions and billions of dollars that was lost due to fraud in that. And then you have Celsius Network, right? Billions lost in security fraud. Billions. I mean, one not even mentioning, only $2 billion was lost in Thodex, right? Thodex was equivalent of like a Coinbase that was based out of Turkey. Anyways, they got embezzled. All the money was lost. People are losing money hand over fist. They're getting embezzled. These schemes now. I want to talk about the modern day one here that's going on right now. Okay, well, and I'm not saying he's doing anything illegal. I don't know. I'm not privy to the situation. But let's talk a little bit about Michael Saylor again and his micro strategies or whatever it's called now. Strategy, I guess it is. Okay, so $50 billion of leveraged Bitcoin, right? 50 billion leveraged Bitcoin companies worth 120 billion, right? Because his Bitcoin are more productive than just a regular Bitcoin. Now, here's the thing that I find funny. Michael Saylor doesn't believe in self-custody and having your own wallet. He thinks you should own this through treasury companies like his, Bitcoin treasury companies, and own Bitcoin that way. And that way they get to have your Bitcoin. It's not out of the system. It's in MicroStrategies, or there's over 100 of them now. Trump Media is one of them. I mean, GameStop's one of them. They're all becoming Bitcoin treasuries. We don't need to make products anymore. We don't need to create anything anymore. All we got to do is trade Bitcoin and we're all going to be rich. But all right, so he's got 50 billion other stuff valued at $120 billion. Now, does he actually have the Bitcoin? Now, that's kind of funny, right? Because there's a simple way to, well, proof of Bitcoin. It's called, it's called chain proof of who owns the Bitcoin. But he refuses to do that. Does he actually have 50 billion worth? Now, I trade a lot of these ETFs. I love trading the ETFs, the Bitcoin ETFs, right? I mean, they go up, they go down. But do they actually have the Bitcoin? Nobody knows. You see, there was a rumor that went around back when Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was the original. They were like, it's not an ETF, it's an actual trust, but it was allowed to trade before they got approval for the ETFs, right? So you had Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and there was a rumor that they didn't actually buy the Bitcoin. So all of a sudden, the Bitcoin was trading at, well, about half of what it was worth. Like, let's say for Michael Saylor Company, 50 billion worth of Bitcoin, but the company was only trading at like they had 25 billion because there was no proof of Bitcoin. And they refused to prove it also, just like Michael Saylor is refusing to prove it. Now, you would think that, well, that the regulators could come in and catch things, right? Well, think about Enron. How long did it take the regulators to catch things? And another interesting thing, Michael Strategies, they just switched their accounting system kind of to an Enron system, which is kind of like, I can market to the market what we feel it's worth. We can say it's worth, and that's now on our balance sheet. Very fascinating times here. Now, I think one of the geniuses of our world is Jim Chanos. A lot of you don't know who Jim is, but Jim Chanos, he's a short seller, right? And I couldn't figure out, why does Jim own so much Bitcoin? This guy's known for short selling. He is short MicroStrategies, right? Because they got their Bitcoin over 2 times what they actually have in Bitcoin. And then he's long Bitcoin again. So if Bitcoin goes up, he's making his money there. But he's saying that MicroStrategies going from $50 billion of Bitcoin trading at 120 billion is going to become like a Grayscale Bitcoin Trust where they claim to have 50 billion, but it's only going to be trading at maybe, 20 billion? So it's going to drop about 6 times. Now, I wouldn't short the company here. I'd wait for it to get above 500 again. 500 is where I shorted it last time. Made $100 per share on the short side. One day it did it and did it. Just went boom. 500, 400, right? It went all the way down below 300, 200 and something I think it got to. Well, it's going to get back above 500 again. But Jim Chanos, he's big time shorting that sucker, and he's long the Bitcoin against it because he's saying that that's going to come down by about, well, it's going to be worth about 20 cents on the dollar of where it's trading at. So let's say it's trading at $500, he thinks it's going to come down to $100. Now, that's just Jim's opinion, right? That's not my opinion. I don't study it well enough to know if that's going to happen or not. But at $500, I'll probably take another crack on the short side. I love, I love the ETFs of Bitcoin, right? They go up, they go down. The one I trade is IBIT. IBIT, it's the most, it's the most liquid. So they have a lot of options. You can trade the option market on that, buy some calls, buy some puts, whichever way you think it. It's just gambling, I mean, I follow the moving averages is what I do, but I like to gamble in those, right? But anyways, you got a lot of problems coming with this MicroStrategy company. Now, I do find it ironic that, the Bitcoin prophet, which he likes to go by, Michael Saylor, he's the Bitcoin prophet. He's like their God, right? I mean, it's kind of a cult, and he's kind of like the God figure. Well, it's going to be kind of funny that he's going to be responsible for the complete collapse of Bitcoin. When it happened, I'm not saying it's going to happen now. No. We going to still print some money, and we're going to pump that guy up. Maybe 150,000. Maybe we get to 200,000. I don't know how much money we're going to keep those printing presses running, right? So they're going to pump it up. I wouldn't, I'm not saying Bitcoin's going to collapse here, but when it does collapse, I am saying that Michael Saylor is going to be the one for its demise, right? When you have to dump $50 billion on Bitcoin, maybe he'll have $100 billion of Bitcoin by then. He buys about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin every week. So another year, he should be up around $100 billion. Now, when you have to dump $100 billion on the market, they're going to be saying, just like the owl bonds, they're going to be saying, to who? To who? Nobody's going to be buying $100 billion worth of Bitcoin. So he's going to be responsible for the downfall. The thing that he is depending on and has bet his life on and his company on, and everybody that follows him is it's going to be kind of sad. But not yet. We're still going higher. Look I love gambling on Bitcoin, right? Maybe we get to 150. Maybe we get to 200,000. Maybe we get a pullback right here. We're at 110 right now. I'm actually saying we're probably going to have a pullback down to 90,000 before we head up to that $150,000 number. But that's just my take. Anyways, I'm just having a little bit of fun on the 4th of July because the markets are closed. They're going to be back open next week. That's why you got punch that subscribe button. Give me a couple thumbs up and get out there and blow something up. It's the 4th of July. Have fun, everybody. Stay safe. I'm Tall Mike. You like this stuff? Thumbs up. Bye-bye now.